I know that some in our audience know the finer points of hockey.
The Chris Johnston Show.
We are your friends.
The biggest stories, bringing you inside the game.
What did you hear?
The Chris Johnston Show.
What is going on?
Here's Chris with your host, Julian McKenzie.
Part of the game.
Siege, we didn't get to any Ask CJ questions on Monday, so we are going to get to them by the end of today's episode. There's still some other news and notes we do need to get to. Trying to figure out what's the best place to start. Vladimir Tarasenko signing in Detroit. Juraj Slafkovsky, we didn't even get to him earlier this week. He signs an extension with the Montreal Canadiens. Shane Pinto, his stalemate with the Ottawa Senators, that comes to an end. There's still some activity happening over the last few weeks. It was the last few days, I should say. I'm already ready for vacation, you can tell. Not as fast and furious as the first day of free agency, but still a lot to talk about.
Yeah, and there's been some trades, teams clearing up cap space. The Joseph brothers being reunited in St. Louis.
Love it.
With Matthew being traded from Ottawa and Pierre-Olivier, his brother, signing as a free agent there. We'll start at Slafkovsky. I mean, I think it was an interesting, contract that Montreal signed him to. To me, looks like one of those tidy bits of business. And, I think it kind of illustrates what teams how they have to approach situations with players, because he's 1 year out from where his contract with his entry-level deal would have ended. He's only played, give or take, 120 NHL games. And you got to make a decision. Are we going to let him play this third season? He took a big step last year, I thought, for Montreal, became a far more impactful player. His numbers reflect that. His usage reflects that. And so you're making a bit of a bet here by signing him to a long-term deal. But for me, it's hard to argue with at least the thinking behind the bet. They keep his cap number a little bit under Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield, the other two forwards they have signed long-term. And, now you've got 9 years of Juraj Slafkovsky. I mean, you have locked him up through what will unquestionably be his prime as an NHL player. And if you're in the Canadiens' end of the rink, you're hoping that his prime far exceeds that cap hit, that he's becomes a 9 or 10 or an $11 million equivalent player over the course of this deal. And of course, what that will mean is, in the middle of this deal, if it's $110 million cap, I mean, to be a $9 million player, $10 million player, and $110 million cap is a little different than what we associate with it today. So, I like the contract. I like where Montreal's trending. I think we're all waiting. Like, what does Ottawa look like? What does Buffalo look like? How, we kind of go back to these touch points, but, you're waiting for there to be a little bit of displacement in the Atlantic division because the four teams at the top have kind of been there for an extended period of time here. But, I like the bet on Slafkovsky, and it is a bet because you're definitely overpaying him today. Did he have a 50-point season last year or something like that?
Yes, he did.
But he's still so young, and, typically even he's a big man, right? Like sometimes bigger players just take a little longer to kind of grow into their bodies and to understand what he can do on the ice. And I mean, this guy's got Yager-like qualities. I'm not saying he's going to have the kind of career Yaromir did, but with the way he can use his body and win the puck along the wall, and obviously has a great shot. So, I love the thinking behind this one, but it's sort of an intriguing decision by the Canadiens at this point in his development.
I feel like we've discussed this particular tactic a bunch of times with the Canadiens, and I think the Senators could be applied to this too. The young talent you get when they show a glimpse of something, if you're able to sign them long-term, you don't worry about year one or year two, them not playing up to that contract. It's the hope that in years 4, 5, 3, 4, 5, that money starts to look like a steal for the potential for them to reach. And I think for a guy like Juraj Slafkovsky, with what he showed in that last year, and just the way that he seems really confident in the market that he's in, I can completely understand that bet. And now the Canadiens found a way to keep Suzuki, Caulfield, and Slafkovsky with AAVs under $8 million for the foreseeable future. I think that's really good business by Kent Hughes.
Absolutely. And I got to say too that, to me, it's a bit of a page out of the way we've seen the Lightning build over the years. If you think back, they signed Anthony Cirelli, Eric Chernak, Mikhail Sergachev. Like, they signed all those guys when they were at the right age a year ahead of time. And look, there's still risk in that, right? I mean, Slafkovsky could theoretically have a terrible year next season, and then we're looking back and being like, wow, they paid him this. And, if they were doing that contract now, like there's always the ability to second guess it. But I think more often than not, you're wise to, if you're comfortable that the player is going to be a sort of core type player for you, like why wait? Why give that player, not to make it about the Leafs, but, if you look at what happened in the third year of the Leafs players when they were in entry-level deals, I'm thinking Marner and Matthews specifically, like they took big jumps in their play in the third year. And, Marner didn't sign till after his third season was completed. Matthews signed midway through his third season and definitely pushed, the boundaries of what he could have signed for. Had he signed 5 or 6 months before that, it would have been a different number on his second deal. I'm not trying to relitigate these contracts. I'm only just, pointing out that there's it's generally, I think, wise to get ahead of it. And that's why even, the Leafs just signed Joseph Woll to an extension 1 year out on July 1st, another, contract we didn't really touch on. I like the bet there. I understand. I've seen a lot of people actually in the market here in Toronto criticizing it. What's he done? He's injury prone, all this stuff. But, let's imagine a world where if Joseph Woll goes out and plays 50 games next season and kind of delivers on the promise you've already seen in his career, you're probably looking at a different number. And on top of that, and this is the one thing you can't measure, I think there's comfort for the player here. Like Slafkovsky, to draw it back to him, I saw in his media conference with reporters, he was saying like he wanted to be settled in. He wants to win. He wants to know he's part of the team. Like he doesn't have to worry about a contract. Like he's going to be like married and, he'll be able to grow a beard like mine by this point. Like by the next time he has to worry about a contract, it's going to be a long time in the future, right? He's still kind of a kid, a very big kid at this point in time, but he's going to be a man the next time he has to worry about that. I think that there's value in that though. And that's the thing you can't measure. You can't do the sliding doors and know, but I even think if you're Joseph Woll's shoes, who, yes, he knows he's had those injuries. He knows he's yet to fully prove himself, but he has the belief now from the organization. He's not playing for a contract next season. He's just playing to be the best he can be, to help his team win, to be a part of the solution. And I think there's huge value in that. Obviously sometimes a contract year can bring out the best in a player, like having that carrot right in front of you, knowing that you're going to, be judged and you're going to have to, basically the numbers you put up in that season are going to have a big impact on what the next deal looks like. But, I think sometimes being locked in at a certain number gives a peace of mind and, allows you just to do your thing. So, I don't see any attack vector for this Slafkovsky deal. Now I say that knowing full well, I didn't have to sign off on that. It's not my career on the line. And that if in 2 seasons he's regressed, and we're going to be talking about what a disaster it was. But I just think that's of the likely outcomes. I think that's the least likely. And Montreal next year, I still don't see it being the year for them to take a big step forward.
I agree.
But by this time next summer, I mean, certainly they've got some contracts coming off the books, and you would think that they're going to be at a spot where they're probably a bigger player in free agency next summer, and then really trying to gear up the year after that to make a run for the playoffs as one of these teams, whether it's Boston, whether it's Toronto, Tampa, Florida. I don't know which one. It's not a prediction, but some of those teams are going to be regressing slightly, and I think there's going to be an opportunity there for the Canadiens.
Some notable players who could be off the books next season as UFAs. Christian Dvorak, Yoel Armia, Jake Evans, Michael Pezzetta is also a UFA. David Savard is also a UFA. There is a golden opportunity for them to clear more salary off the books. And depending on who could be available in 2025 as a free agent, it puts the Canadiens in a very good spot to land a free agent if they so choose.
Well, in 2025 could be a bit of a chaos year. Mm-hmm. And I say this knowing full well that for the most part, the very best NHL potential free agents never hit free agency, certainly not in their primes. But I just wonder if some of the conditions that are at play right now shift that for 2025. And, just off the top of my head, you have Leon Draisaitl, Mitch Marner, Sidney Crosby, Carter Verhaeghe right now. I mean, you have not to put him in the same, but like there is a lot of really good players that aren't signed yet for 2025. Now they have 353 days or so to do so. Like there's a lot still to play out before we're saying with any certainty that those players hit free agency, but it's definitely not impossible. When I look at Draisaitl's situation, like this is such a big contract for him. I mean, he's played 7 years on his 8-year deal. He had 5 100-point seasons in his 7 years that he's played on this current contract. He's making just over $8 million. Like, he has delivered so much excess value on that deal. It's in his mind, his agent's minds, that he's got to make that up on his next deal. And so whether that ends up being in Edmonton or on the open market, remains to be seen. But it would not surprise me at all if he's going to the highest bidder next July 1st. Mitch Marner seems inclined to play out this season. Certainly his agent, Darren Ferris, has liked to do that with his clients. Darren Ferris, his agent, has actually taken the reverse of what I'm saying from the team side of Slafkovsky. And he's always thought it's best to just play the full thing out because you're probably going to have a better year. You're probably going to have a stronger case. You're going to have more leverage. There's no question. If Marner plays out this season, whether it's in Toronto or somewhere else, and has 100 points, which is totally like in his wheelhouse, it's basically he's played at 100-point place these last number of seasons, and he's totally free to sign wherever he wants on July 1st. He's going to have a huge amount of leverage as a player. The Crosby dynamic, we need a whole show to unpack that one. I don't want to just...
I'm prepared to do that if we need to.
I don't want to just launch into that. But, look what's happening in Pittsburgh. Like, it just becomes increasingly difficult for me to see, other than loyalty and knowing, like, how important the city and the organization are to him. It's hard to imagine that he's eager to re-sign there. Like, it's probably should be a bigger storyline. I think it's because Sid, who he is, he's so loyal. He's not one to ever rock the boat. But it's July 4th, and he has been able to sign a contract since July 1st, and he hasn't. And there's nothing brewing there. Like, there's been some discussions, but I don't get the sense the discussions have been all that productive to this point. And I think it's almost like everyone's just assuming that there's no way he'd ever leave. And that's why it probably hasn't made the sort of, rumblings that it might. But I'm telling you, you got to watch that one. Not because I don't think he wants to leave. Like, that's sort of an obvious statement. I just wondered if they've done enough to make him want to stay. Like the point is, he's not looking for a reason to leave, but I'm not sure they've given him a reason to stay either. It's been a very underwhelming free agency and trade period, I'd say, for the Penguins. And, I say that knowing full well, like, what could they do? Like, there's, there wasn't necessarily a bunch of saviors out there for them. I know they were one of the teams bidding on Tarasenko. That would have helped. Someone who can shoot the puck in the net. There's a reason why Detroit went and signed him. There's a reason why Florida just won a cup with him. Like, he's a useful player. He's not the game breaker that he once was, but he helps make your team better. I don't see how the Penguins are going to be any better next year. I don't think you could ask for any more out of Crosby than what he gave you last season. Like, it's not about sort of the guys you've had there being better. Maybe some better goaltending throughout the season, things like that you could hope for, but I don't know. Like, I think Pittsburgh could be the epicenter for some really interesting things in the next year. And so you're right. This started off with a talk about Montreal and them having cap space and the sort of desire to pounce in 2025 in free agency. I think next year could be a chaos year. It might start this summer. Like, if it becomes clear that some of those players 100% aren't re-signing, maybe we're talking about trades before the start of the next season. But even if they go into the last years of their deals, we might have a really fascinating free agency next summer.
Sidney Crosby's boyhood team was the Montreal Canadiens. Just saying. Or Colorado. I think was more likely. It's just if I had a crystal ball, I would probably project that Sidney Crosby would be just calling up Nathan McKinnon and being like, hey, you want to play at least a year or two together? And you go from there. I can totally see Sidney Crosby in a Colorado Avalanche uniform. I know my brain has done a complete 180 from the last time we talked about this, where I do not see him leaving Pittsburgh. I'm starting to get to that other side now.
Yeah.
Anyway,
here's the thing is like, do you want to like this? He's got to probably look himself in the mirror this summer, obviously have chats with people close to him that matters, but it's like, do you want to play these last couple of years where you're still at a high? I know a big carrot for Crosby is that he's going to get to now play best on best again. He's going to get to play with the younger generation, the McDavids, the Marners, the Braden Points. These like this is that'll be cool for him, whether it's at the Four Nations or the 2026 Olympics. Like, that's all locked in. But do you want to be kind of toiling in mediocrity? Do you want your season to end on April 10th? The answer is no, but like that, I just don't see the path back to the playoffs quickly for the Penguins, or certainly, okay, you might make the playoffs. Like Washington made the playoffs this year and they were swept in 4 games. Like I don't see the path back to really contending. We should actually talk about the Capitals. Honestly, I think they've had the opposite offseason. Like if I'm Crosby, I'm looking at what the Capitals are doing and being like, okay, why are we not operating in this manner? Because to me, they are unquestionably better on paper July 4th than they were on June 4th. Like they have made some really interesting bets. Their GM Brian McClellan is calling them bets. Like I actually love, I don't know if you saw his press comments, but he gave a pretty good press conference this week and said, like, look, we're trying to make the best team we can while Ovechkin's still here. We are making bets. Like he acknowledges that Pierre-Luc Dubois, that trade is a bet, but like, I don't think it's a crazy bet at where Dubois is in his career. And, you know, they're making deals for Jacob Chikrin. You know, they signed Matt Roy to a pretty big ticket item in free agency. They get Brandon Duhaime. Like I just think that they have a better NHL team and they didn't really sacrifice too much. Like they're not trading away a ton of draft picks in these deals. Like they're making sort of player for player trades, because it was Darcy Kemper that was traded for Dubois. It's Nick Jensen going out the door in the deal that gets some Chikrin from Ottawa. Like I love the way, for a team trying to not fall to the bottom of the league and just extend its window as best it can. I love the way the Capitals have kind of approached the offseason. You know, if you're Crosby and they're looking down the barrel of a 3rd straight year without the playoffs, you know, this is his last season on his deal, his current deal. You know, does he resign a 2 or 3 year deal? Do you want 4, 5, 6 years out of the playoffs? Like it's tough. And look, sometimes players are the last ones to see it because they believe so much in their own abilities. They believe in their teammates. They believe in the program. But I mean, I think the Penguins are headed into their hibernation period. I think they're headed to their rebuild. And I don't know how this shakes out. None of this is meant to suggest he's gone or anything like that. It's just, I'm looking at the landscape and I'm looking at the fact he hasn't signed his new deal. The other thing too, he's played, I'll say this. He played what? I think he had a 5-year contract at a entry level at an $8.7 million cap hit. Then he did a 12-year deal. That's the one that's ending at an $8.7 million cap hit. I'm willing to bet his next contract is for more than that on an average annual value. I'm willing to bet he's not signing for $8.7 million to ride out the career. Nor should he. Look at his results. But that's the other part of this. He's going to be like, he's definitely been paid for 17 years under his value.
I agree.
Which benefited Pittsburgh, which benefited him because he wanted to play for championships. He had a chance to be in 4 Stanley Cup finals. He won 3 of them. But I don't see a discount on the next deal. Nor should he. Like, I would never sit here and argue any player should sign for less than their value, because I just think the career windows are so short. Mm-hmm. But that's the other dynamic here. I bet he's getting paid properly. And the last thing on this, because you mentioned Colorado, and we're down the rabbit hole here.
I love this. This is amazing. Go off.
And look, the Avalanche have a really murky cap picture because there's just a lot of question marks. But, you know, they have Gabriel Landeskog, who they're hoping will play next season. But no one, and I mean no one, because of the nature of the procedure he had, knows what will be. Like, he might play 1 game and he just can't do it. I hope for Gabe's sake. I mean, he hasn't played in the league for 2 years. I hope he's able to come back and play, but he's a big question mark. Like, there's a chance, unfortunately, his career, who knows? And then you have Valery Nichushkin, who's in stage 3 of the NHLPA Player Assistance Program. He can't play before November under the terms of that arrangement. The Avalanche are telling teams right now, we're not trading him during this window. Like, they're hoping to help rehabilitate the player and the person, but who knows? Like, he's another question mark for the Avalanche in another sort of bigger contract. And so there's a world where come next summer, one or both of those players are not in the Avalanche's future. Like, they will have more clarity by this time next year on those players. And if that's the case, they're going to have a big hole or holes to fill in their lineup. So things could be aligning as much as you're trying to draw the Montreal thing. Things could align that makes Colorado even more than, you know, a good team, great city, great opportunity to chase a cup for Crosby. They might also need someone like that. And so, you know, there's a reason to keep watching these next 12 months. Keep watching, keep listening, because I could just see, you can see how things could shape up where we have some pretty major faces, major personalities, major star players changing teams, like in multiple versions of that. It could be like a series of earthquakes and tremors in these next 12 months.
I think a lot of our listeners will appreciate the warning here for 2025. And now my brain, before, you know what? I'll stop my brain from letting it get too far. I wonder how much you've thought about the summer of 2026. But that could be a whole episode in itself.
I have not. I don't even know what you're nodding at. I mean, obviously Connor McDavid is a UFA that summer, but I don't know. I honestly haven't looked
I'm not nodding at anything. I'm not nodding at anything in particular.
No, I didn't know if there's like 4 other amazing players that have contracts expiring.
I don't know.
Because I don't have I haven't looked that far ahead. It's funny. I saw today Stephen Ellis at Daily Faceoff put out his like projected 2026 draft rankings, and I'm like,
I saw that.
I'm like, bless you, man, but I cannot believe you're able to look that far ahead because we're so much in the here and now in this business.
This episode of the Chris Johnston Show is brought to you by Shady Rays. Get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. And they have hundreds of styles to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. I got a pair. I know Adam Wild's got a pair. Steve Dangle's got himself a pair. And look, Sunglasses CJ, he's going to make an appearance at some point, and you'll see him rocking his pair of Shady Rays. Plus, if your shades ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, don't sweat it. They have the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair is backed by lost or broken replacements. If you don't love your shades, exchange them for a new pair, return worry-free within 30 days. It's really great. There's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back with personal and fast support. ShadyRays.com. Go to that website right now. You can use the code Johnston to get 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. ShadyRays.com. Use the code Johnston for 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. Shane Pinto signing a new contract with the Ottawa Senators with an AAV of $3.75 million. That'll keep him until 2026. He's an RFA after that. Any thoughts on that deal?
Well, it didn't come easily, right? I mean, there was discussions about an offer sheet for Shane Pinto. Pierre Lebrun, our colleague at The Athletic, my colleague as well at TSN, put out something on July 1st about the possibility of a trade request going in, or not that it had gone in, but that it might come. This has not been an easy negotiation. You know, the Senators did make the Matthew Joseph deal essentially for future considerations, pure cap dump to St. Louis in order to free up the kind of room to sign Pinto. But, you know, I think it's good for Shane and for the team. They got it done sooner rather than later, because those were, if that was already the talk at the start of July, had he not had a contract by the end of July, it would have been getting worse and worse. Mm-hmm. You know, I think this is a huge season for the Senators, and I'm not talking about with their fans or, you know, getting the media to believe. Like, I think they have to take a step forward. They have to get the players on their team to believe a little bit, because it just feels like there's a lot of, you know, this is only a 2-year deal for Pinto. So obviously there's still like, he gets a nice raise on it, on where he's been at, but he's got to prove something. Like it's a bit of a prove it deal both ways. Like, he's getting closer to UFA. I know Brady Tkachuk signed, but there's all these sort of thoughts, like how long is he going to be? You know, it's as nice as it is for him to go celebrate with his brother Matthew, and we know that family is very close, winning a championship. Like, how long is he going to want to be part of a team that just isn't making the playoffs? It isn't even in the running for those types of things. You know, it feels like a year in Ottawa where they have to take a step for their own self-belief more than anything external. And obviously all the external stuff flows out of that and would be positive. But I think sort of short term, it's great that they get the deal done with Pinto. I think, you know, give him a full year. Obviously a difficult season for him last year where he had a contract situation hang over his head all summer, and then he gets suspended for 41 games for some illegal betting activity that he had participated in. Obviously that's his own error that he has to wear, but you know, when you're not making your season debut until late January, it's tough to have the kind of season you want it to. Like, you know, he's at an age where you expect him to be becoming more of an impactful player. So I think to have this settled now gives him his best chance at success. And that's a team, you know, I think we'll be talking a lot about next year, Julian, because I don't know that they've that they have enough internally. I mean, they make the big deal for Linus Hallmark. They brought in Jensen on their blue line, the other side of the Chikrin deal, which I think makes sense in that Jensen signed for a couple of years. He's a right shot, gives them better balance. We've talked about how, with them already having Shabbat and Sanderson locked in long-term on the left side, Chikrin he had a great year last year, but it's like it didn't, maybe too much of a good thing in one position. So I like the idea, the thinking behind that trade, but the Senators, it just feels like this solves like one bit of business for a day, but it doesn't get past the fact that they've really got to find a way to take a step forward this season. Also, new head coach, Travis Green, too.
Yes, Travis Green has a lot to prove as well. Which team do we talk about more next season, the Senators or the Buffalo Sabres, who are pretty much in the exact same boat?
They're in the same spot. Like, Kevin Adams is definitely feeling the heat. The Sabres GM, I've seen a lot more pointed questions thrown at him when he's meeting the media there, and this idea. I mean, who are we talking about more? Probably the Senators. But it's a dead heat. Like, it's two organizations in the same place where, like, so 5 years ago they were lost at sea, give or take. In these last 2 years, they've like locked up players to contracts that make sense, right? Like, on both sides, we've liked the deals they've made. It seems like they're making good bets. It seems like they're building in the right direction. And yet we haven't seen them take the kind of steps on the ice. I mean, the Sabres 2 years ago, to be fair, almost made the playoffs. Like, they had a really nice second half and played meaningful games in the last week of the regular season. But, they both churned through coaches. They're both looking for answers. And so I don't know which one we talk about more. I'm going to say the Senators because they're based in Canada, but the truth is the same things go the other way, because I would say in Buffalo, like, okay, if this isn't working next season, maybe you're trading one or more of those players that we like their deals. We like the players, but just the mix isn't right. Or, I don't know what you do. The larger lesson to me is the full rebuild is still a massive risk, even when you get players in the draft that you like. It just, remember how long it took Edmonton, and really until they get McDavid there, it didn't change, but they had all those first overall picks, and it just takes forever if you go to the bottom. That's also why I kind of like what Washington's doing. Like, I think you've got to stay competitive as long as you can. Eventually you probably run out of time, but Washington, I think they're going to be a better team next year than a lot of teams in the East. I've seen some regression in the East. Like, look at Carolina. Has not been some of that. I get it. Just that you weren't re-signing Shea at that number. Pesci, really since last summer has had a foot out the door. Teuvo Teravainen moves on. But I haven't liked what they've done since. Like, I think that they're signing players in free agency, but I just don't know if they've replaced them. They certainly haven't upgraded their team. And then they also have the Martin Necas deal sort of mess there. So I can see some regression. So I guess maybe if you're one of these other teams, there's opportunity there to jump up. But man, the longer these teams at the bottom of the East don't make that jump, the more pressure gets applied. It's like exponentially more each season.
By the way, since you keep mentioning the Washington Capitals, according to Cap Friendly, which still works as of this recording, for the public anyway.
It goes out tomorrow, July 5th.
Tomorrow. The Caps over 13 million over the Caps limit as of right now, according to Cap Friendly. Something's going to have to change there.
But look, that's a team that's not afraid to change.
No, absolutely not.
Like, they've made a lot of trades in the last couple of years. And Cap Friendly is now going internal there, so Cap Friendly can help address the issues that Cap Friendly itself is highlighting.
like that big red number that says minus 13 million. Anyway.
Well, and I don't know, do they have long-term injured players? I haven't looked closely at the exact details of that.
I think they have players who, Nicholas Backstrom is still
so Backstrom,
candidate.
He's not playing.
No. But yeah, there's something there's stuff they could do to bring that number down. But I would imagine some other movement would still have to happen on their roster for them to be cap compliant for next season.
Right. Well, There is some question too about TJ Oshie's status health wise. So that right there could explain it. If you have Backstrom and Oshie, but yeah, there's definitely going to be some changes.
Absolutely.
Look at that blue line. They've got 8 players signed.
Yeah, like John Carlson, Matt Roy, I forgot Matt Roy just joined the Washington Capitals. Jacob Chikrin, as
7-year deal, man.
Yeah, that's a big deal for him.
He had a lot of interest.
There.
I mean, the Leafs were there.
Yes.
But I think fair to assume got outbid that they weren't probably going 7 years on him at that number, or they just couldn't. It's not that they didn't necessarily want to. I love it though. I think it's great to see a team putting the chips in.
I get it. It's just like, I don't know. Like I totally see that side of thinking, not to make this another discussion about rebuilds, but I also think of a team like the one I'm covering now that has all that cap space and flexibility. I don't know. I kind of would rather be in that spot where have a lot of room to do things. And I know you're not going to be competitive, as opposed to the Capitals where you're making some bets. A lot of them could like not pan out. And
but they're smart.
Have all the contracts in front of me, but
I feel like they're pretty smart bets. Like the only one that could truly, like if Pierre-Luc Dubois just can't play hockey anymore.
Yeah, you're stuck with that contract.
But like the odds of him, it was a down season. The odds of him being just flat out awful, I just think are low. I mean, they have to unlock something there. He's got to maybe approach his offseason differently. Like I'm not saying, hey, it'll just take care of itself, but he's still young enough that it's not an insane bet. They're not splashing around draft picks. They're not signing. They're not, like Chikrin is 1 year left on his deal.
You're right.
I don't know. I feel like
Mangiapane also has 1 year left on his deal as well.
Most of this is pretty smart to make them better in the short term, and they didn't give up a whole lot to do it. The flip side with Calgary, and they're just getting into theirs, but it's like, I don't know when they're going to be good. Like I think you're going to need, you need a telescope to figure out when they're going to be good again. It could be 5 years. It could be 7 years. You
can never tell. I agree with that thinking too. You have no idea how long a rebuild will take. It could be 3 years, which sometimes we've seen with different teams where if you try to retool quickly on the fly, it might not work. It could be 5 years. It could be 7 years. I have no idea. Who knows?
Yeah. And look, maybe they'll start making moves like the Capitals moves that I'm talking about and using some of that space and all the pick capital and everything and start actually adding NHL players back. But they've just subtracted so many effective players and really not added very many in their place. And so, you just the math does itself on that one. I think it's going to be a long rebuild in Calgary. Mm-hmm. I hope not for your case, for the fans' case there. I know it's a great fan base, but I just look at the series of moves and it feels like far off.
It definitely does feel far off, but it just in seeing what the fan base is like, I think there's a faction of them that are patient and are willing to let this play out because they've seen the other way where they've tried to push for a playoff spot and ultimately fail, or tried to make some kind of run of it and it failed. Whereas now they have the cap space. They know, well, on paper anyway, this team does not look like they're going to be that good. Depending on what other assets they could have leading into next year, it could lead to more opportunities for them to accumulate more assets. Like, it's going to take time, but
the picks you're making today aren't going to be good for 5 years usually.
Yeah, but
and that's if you hit.
Right, but I don't know if the Flames right now are in a position where, I mean, obviously they would love to have players who would be good right now to help make this faster, but they also need quality in their prospect pool. A guy like Zane Parekh, who might not be good for another few years, they needed a player like him anyway because he has game-breaking potential. Like, sometimes you just have to wait. I think the Flames they're in a position where they can afford to wait, I think.
I guess. I just think back 2 years and they were the runner-up in the trade for Jack Eichel. And
yeah,
like the alternate timeline is they trade for Eichel and maybe they resign some of the players that they just traded away. And, I get it. I definitely sense that there's been this push, we want to see the young guys in Calgary, but I guarantee you'll get tired of it at some point. I mean, ask Ottawa and ask Buffalo.
Oh yeah.
They've seen lots of young guys and they've seen lots of losing seasons.
I'm with you there. I'm with you there. I think what the Flames are doing.
There are lots of Nail Yakupov jerseys in Edmonton, and even Taylor Hall, who I don't think the Oilers should have traded away. I think that was definitely one of the big mistakes they made in that era. But like, there's so many Jordan Eberle, like just players that aren't around by the time the team's good again. It takes 5 years, and then it takes another 5 years, and by then you've like really challenged your fan base.
Absolutely. You need a generational player. You need really good players to help this along. The Flames need to put themselves in a position to get those players, though. Unless someone is willing to, hey, no one's going to give them Cale Makar straight up off a trade unless he becomes a free agent and decides to come back to Alberta. We'll see. Anyway, anything else we need to mention before we get to questions?
No, that ended up being like 30 minutes of like stream of consciousness.
That was actually, I mean, I loved it. I thought it was really cool. Let's get to these questions for Ask CJ. Thank you to everyone who sent in questions, and sorry that we had to move it from Monday to Thursday. Tuesday, was a crazy day. Let's get to this first one from K-Town2272. CJ, thoughts on the Leafs getting former Pizza employee Chris Tanev?
Wait a minute.
You didn't know about this?
Is that a fact?
I was Googling this yesterday, and apparently he was a Pizza employee once upon a time.
Wow, this is incredible. I mean, I like the look at it. The contract is long and risky, but I like this was exactly the type of player the Leafs needed, and it was the one that was available. I think assuming health, which you can't always assume health with a 34-year-old who's had a series of injuries. I like it short term for the Leafs for sure, and the fact that he also worked at Pizza. I mean, this is a mind-blowing revelation that I was not aware of. I knew he had a difficult or challenging or unorthodox path to the NHL, Chris Tanev, but now I've got the first time I get a chance to chat with him when he gets to Toronto is I've got a good opener for questions.
What do you look at that? Two Chris's working at Pizza. That's a really good. I love that.
I never worked at Pizza.
Oh no, sorry. You love Pizza. You worked at Wendy's. I don't know
why
I tripped that up.
I ate.
Why did I trip that up?
I don't think they would have hired me at the Coburg Pizza because they'd be like, this dude will be eating all the stock. Like this dude, he's going to be eating the product.
Oh God, sorry.
He's going to be too distracted. He's just going to want to eat all that yummy pizza.
Sorry, I got tripped up with your love for Pizza. And for whatever reason, my brain just thought, oh, yeah, right. Like, did he work there? No, he didn't. It was Wendy's. Sorry.
And I'll tell you, since I worked at Wendy's, which was like 20 years ago, I've probably eaten there less than 5 times since. Like, I have nothing against it. I didn't see anything that like made me not want to go back, but like I almost had enough. I don't need to go back. It was that was
my question.
Great memories. Love the job. Like I literally talk fondly about that time in my life, but I've only ever gone to Wendy's when there's like no other choice or something.
It's not bad. It's not bad fast food place. I like the burgers there. They're not bad.
As I say, I'm not slandering it. I've just got tired of it, I guess, from being a kid. But Pizza. I will always go to Pizza. I'm a Pizza stan.
Hit up Adam Wild Pizza. You know the number.
We're just sitting right here. Send us some free za. Let's go.
I'm telling you, man. Open sponsorship opportunity. Next one from
the Leafs have Pizza on the helmet. I wonder if that's going to like...
Yes.
I wonder if Chris Tanev, it's going to be like a full circle moment for him when he pulls out. Everyone talks about pulling on this legendary jersey. Like when he puts on the Pizza helmet, maybe it's going to like unlock something.
I dare you to ask him when you get a chance to be like, how does it feel to wear Pizza on your helmet knowing you work there?
It's funny for a guy that's played in the league so long, I don't know him at all. So I'm going to have to gauge what kind of personality he is before I broach that topic. But
he could be a little dry, but he's a really smart he's a smart individual, and sometimes like some of his responses might be a little short. It might take you a little off guard, but he doesn't waste words. I like dealing with him the last 2 seasons he was in Calgary. He was a really good guy to deal with.
Well, that's good. But I'm not going to come in there the first day actually and be like, hey, does this Pizza helmet make you feel, does this give you superpowers?
Do you still eat at Pizza, Chris Tanev?
I'm not going to ask him that either.
Not going to ask him that.
That's a loaded... It's a loaded question because he's going to be like, what's he trying to say? I'm out of shape or something? Like,
yeah, duh, you don't want that.
But
Oh my god. Okay. No more Chris Tanev pizza fanfic from us here at the CJ show. From Fur to Ducks. Next question. Ducks fan here. Any word on what Pat Verbeek is up to? I didn't expect any huge free agent signings, but surely Verbeek needs to do something to try to improve the team, targeting any of the young players that didn't receive a QO, any trade rumblings, a whisper about an offer sheet. I'll take anything.
Well, he just traded for Robbie Fabry's contract.
This question was before the Robbie Fabry contract.
So I think that's a window into what Verbeek's trying to do. I mean, a player that, he's trying to match up players with the younger players in his organization. He's obviously they signed Alex Killorn last year. They took a stab at Steven Stamkos this year. Like there's certain veterans I think they would look to bring in because they believe they would be culture shifters in addition to helping on the ice. But beyond that, you're looking for mid-range players that can hopefully become part of the fabric and grow up with the team. And so I think you can see more of those type of deals using the cap space. I mean, they add an extra pick in the deal to take Fabry's deal. I think that's the sort of what you should expect out of Verbeek. So obviously they weren't major players in free agency, but I don't think they should be. I mean, most of the free agents are in their 30s and most of them are getting significant contracts. And, it's still a bit of a steady build up in Anaheim. I'll be curious to see. I know it's the trade rumor that never reaches a conclusion, but if we see John Gibson moved at some point, I still think they'd move Trevor Zegras too in the right trade. So I think that the order of the day in Anaheim is patience. I don't see them doing anything crazy, but certainly looking to add more guys in the 25, 26 range to improve the team and create the most favorable conditions for the young group of players that they drafted in the last few years that are joining the lineup.
Okay. Congo Red, describe your ideal summer cottage. What would it have around it and what amenities would it have?
No cell phone service.
At all?
At all.
Don't you? I feel like you kind of need it, just in case something happens.
Nah, you don't need it.
What do you mean? Like,
I'll tell you that the LeBrun compound up north of Toronto does not have very good cell phone service. Like you literally have to walk to the end of Pierre's driveway to take a call, and it's a long driveway. Like it's one of those cottage driveways that winds through the trees, and you couldn't find it unless you knew where it was. Like you literally, Pierre's cottage does not show up on GPS. Like you have to know where you're going, which is awesome.
It's like a secret bunker.
Yeah, and it's more just like, to me, the ideal cottage is on a lake, very remote. It's not like I know parts of Muskoka are so beautiful up north of Toronto, but a lot of them are just like mega home on the lake. Like that's not for me. I like something a little bit more remote. A good screened in porch, I'd say, is a nice like amenity to have with like a TV where, in the summer I could watch like the British Open or whatever, or I mean, I'm not watching the baseball team that shall not be named on this podcast these days.
Damn, we're at that point.
Damn. I've not watched a game since May, like not even a minute.
Wow. Jeez.
I'm not coming back till they make changes. But like that's the kind of summer activity I'd want to have. But honestly, I don't need a whole lot. I don't need a McMansion on a lake. I just want nice setting. But I don't have a cottage. I'm not in the market for a cottage. It's not really. I like going to traveling in this. You only get this like kind of slice of the year to do things that aren't work. Full credit to those who love to spend 8 weeks in a row at a cottage. I like to have a couple cottage weekends. I'm lucky to have some friends and family that give me the little taste of it, but I don't have to go head first into actually doing that full time myself.
Yeah, cottage chalet weekends are the best. Love them.
I think I got 2 or 3 this summer.
Take some photos. You need a barbecue at this cottage. You absolutely need a barbecue.
Yeah, sorry, I thought that went without saying.
Yeah, like
no one wants to be at a cottage and like cooking only in the kitchen. Like some of it's got to be outdoor cooking. And honestly, I like protein, so.
Wait, grill or barbecue pit?
Grill. I don't know what a barbecue pit is.
Or I don't know.
I think we're talking the same thing though. Like just like a barbecue.
I guess it is more or less the same thing. It doesn't.
Are you
matter.
thinking
Names
like something with like actually open flames?
Yeah, something like that.
I've never cooked on that, but I'm not against it. I'm more like just a propane barbecue essentially.
That's okay.
But I'm not snobby about it. Like I'm open to other forms of cooking. That's just all I've ever been exposed to.
Are you good with like? Do you have like a rib recipe, or like do you like cook steaks and stuff? Like, do you have like a good like grill go to for yourself?
I'm pretty simple. This isn't going to shock you, but I eat ribs, but I've never actually prepared ribs myself. But steak for sure, burgers.
Mm-hmm.
I can man the grill in a simple way and not screw it up. And I like it because I can counterbalance like the flipper with a beer. You know what I mean? Like I'm perfectly weighted. It feels like very, very dad vibes when I'm at the grill.
Last thing, and then I'll get to the next question. But like I've tried preparing ribs before, and like I've had a bit of help from like my mom with that.
Yeah.
If you get yourself a smoker with that,
ooh.
Oh yeah, it's
beautiful. I like everything smoked. Like I like the taste of smoked. Like I even like smoky. If you get a good smoky mixed drink or highball, like anything smoked, I'm in. So you and I are in agreement on that.
Absolutely.
A rare food take that we're on the same board, same page with. I love it.
We're allowed to agree on takes. Also, smoked drinks. If you're ever in Calgary at the same time I'm there, I'll take you to a couple places where we can get that.
All right.
Anyway, Paul Zhang is trading Calle Jarnkrok plus for a center, something the Leafs are considering.
I think they would look at moving Camp for Jarnkrok or Timothy Liljegren in the right deal. Like, I should be very clear. That's not to say that they're like trying to get rid of them at all costs, but I think that because of, the Leafs salary cap, they're pretty tight up against it. And really at this point of the offseason, they've not made any changes to their forward group. Like the blue line looks different, obviously made the moves in net, but I think they're going to have to get creative perhaps to address any changes they want to make it forward. So I do think that those types of players could be had, but that being said, I don't have any reason to believe anything's close or that it's going to happen. But, I think certainly entering this offseason, they were open-minded about that. But the reason those players have the contracts they do is that they do provide a function. It's just if they could get an upgrade, what they felt was an upgrade by moving those players out to create the cap room needed, I think they do so.
Okay. From Eric F. Any news on Mark Giordano? Haven't seen anything. New team, re-signing, anything.
I don't know anything myself. I saw someone put out prior to July 1st that he wanted to still play. But I don't have any of my own reporting to contribute there, but I did see a report he wanted to still play. He was the oldest skater last year in the NHL at age 40. Wish him the best, but I don't get the sense it's coming in Toronto if that's what's going to happen. But it didn't sound like, based on the last report I read, that Gio was ready to hang them up. So that's all I got.
Okay. From this is the real name I'm using here, Stinkface McPoop Lightning. What does CJ think about bucket hats?
I like them on other people. I don't know that it's my style. But look, it offers sun protection, apparently some degree of style. I'm not going to sit here and hate on a bucket hat.
No. I feel like there was an episode you wore a bucket hat.
I think it might have been a joke, though. I don't even know.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It wasn't like a serious thing. I honestly don't own one myself. Like wherever I had that one I wore was like a prop at some point. But I'm not down on them. I just don't know that it's my style. I feel like, I don't know why, but I feel like it was that summer when like Johnny Gaudreau was leaving. I feel like it was then you wore that hat and sunglasses.
It could be. And now that I'm thinking of it, look, if I was at like LeBron's cottage on the dock, a bucket hat might be appropriate, but I don't own one. You won't see me wearing one in downtown Toronto. I know that much, but that being said, I've seen some people pull it off and I'm like, respect. Just
yeah. Bucket hats are cool. I like that we agree on bucket hats. We're at the same level with that. We don't actually disagree on a lot of stuff, to be quite honest.
No, I know. It's just a few things we've disagreed on, like forcefully. Like we've both been like not willing to give an inch on like a chocolate bar take or whatever.
Yeah, I'm not giving it an inch.
Poutine take or whatever, poutine hot dog take. Or
I have a chocolate question for you. How do you feel about Snickers bars?
I'm a fan.
I like them. They're growing on me.
Yeah.
They're growing on me.
I haven't had one for a while. Like I try to avoid that, but like I definitely would eat a Snickers bar.
I sometimes have one before ball hockey games. Like that's
wow.
a thing I do.
Is that what we're blaming your suspension on? Like you were a little too sugared up there. You weren't thinking clearly.
It's supposed to be the opposite. Actually, you're supposed to have a Snickers to help you think clearly.
Okay.
It's supposed to be the opposite.
As the video shows.
I still get people who hit me up about that all the time, by the way. People still like they're like, that video was hilarious. When I did radio a couple months ago, we had a guest on who made reference to that video and the suspension. Like, that's going to follow me for a while, and I'm not upset about that.
I saw George Peros a couple times in the press box during the Cup final, and I wanted to ask him if he saw it, but it always seemed like it was the Stanley Cup final, right? Like he's got to be on. Like he's not there to goof around. But maybe if I see him in a lighter moment, I'll inquire to see if the Department of Player Safety took note of our work.
Please let me know about that, because if they have a take on this, then that is going to live forever. Next one from Ugly Thor. For Patrick Kane's contract, how does the signing bonus work? Say things go way south and Detroit are sellers, with the playoff team acquiring Kane need to pay that signing bonus.
Any bonus earned while he's a member of the Red Wings would stay with them. So I don't have the exact breakdown in front of me, but I know he had a big one for 10 games. Presumably he's going to play 10 games in Detroit before anything like a trade might happen. And so the Red Wings would be stuck with that. But yeah, I mean, look, they're basically on the hook for the contract. The beauty of having some of the money tied up in those bonuses for 35 and over player is that Detroit can push those bonuses over to the next season if need be. No team wants to do that. You want to have them accounted for this year, but it does provide a little bit of flexibility should Steve Yzerman and the front office need it.
Okay. One more question for you from Sky. Does CJ have any sort of clarity on this Jacob Trouba situation? Have things gotten ugly in New York?
I don't know if they're ugly. They're probably not pretty, but look, the situation is pretty straightforward in that the team was looking to trade him. He negotiated and has trade protection in his contract that allowed for him to have a full no movement clause right through till July 1st, Monday this week. Now he's since submitted his list of teams that he can't be traded to. And I think, I don't know the exact list, but I think it's fair to say that he's used that list in a manner that will make it more difficult to trade him, i.e. teams that are known to be interested in Jacob Trouba are listed on his no trade. And that's where it's at. I mean, he doesn't want to be traded. The team is looking for some flexibility. It's kind of like the Ottawa situation. They have, Braden Schneider, Adam Fox ahead of him on their depth chart. So he's a third pairing defenseman right now, taking up $8 million of cap space, happens to wear the captain C there. Like, I don't know that it's ugly. It's just kind of the business is the best way to put it. Like, I think it's maybe a little uncomfortable and not everybody wants the same outcomes right now. But I'm that being said, I'm not sure they're going to be able to trade him. And it's a big contract to move. I think this time next year, there'll probably be more willingness from Jacob Trouba's camp, assuming he's not moved in the meantime, to work with the Rangers on a trade. But right now he wants to be where he is. And we'll see if the team can find something that makes sense, because they do still get half the league with which they can make a deal without him consenting to it. So a little bit, I guess, a little awkward or a little uncomfortable, but I don't think it's like outright vicious. It's just, not in every circumstances do a team or front office's wants align with what a player's wants. And that's really how I see the Trouba situation.
All right. That's going to do it for questions. How about stick taps before we wrap up? Do you have a stick tap for this week?
Sure. I'll give my stick tap to Jessica Campbell, hired Wednesday as an assistant coach with the Seattle Kraken. The first time ever, this is history, my friend, we've had a full-time assistant coach who is a woman in the NHL. I should point out the NHL is the last of the 4 major professional sports leagues in North America that have had a woman become a full-time member of the coaching staff. So this is obviously has been some time coming. And I think, what's interesting to me more than just, the headline of that, the fact that Jessica Campbell is a bit of a trailblazer and obviously giving hope to a lot of other women that are hoping to follow in her footsteps. She's only 32 years old. She just celebrated her 32nd birthday, and it would be an accomplishment for anyone to get an assistant coaching job. And I think her story really is a tremendous example of what you can do, taking advantage of opportunity. She was a high level national team player in the Canadian program. Played in the now defunct CWHL for a little bit, but she became basically a power skating instructor in Kelowna. And, this is going back 5-6 years, came to work with a lot of players that are current NHLers. I know Luke Shen, for example, who's had kind of a career renaissance, was among those who worked with Jessica back in the day. Kind of brings a skills development aspect to things. She ended up coaching a little bit in Germany, first on a skills end with Nuremberg, but then became an assistant coach. That led her to a spot at the Men's World Hockey Championship in 2022 with the German team, first woman ever on the bench at that tournament, leads to an opening with the Coachella Valley Firebirds. And in her 2 seasons working under Dan Bilesma there, not only did she help a number of their young players, Ty Cartier, notably Shane Wright, Riker Evans, that team went to the final in back-to-back years. And lo and behold, the door opens. Dan Bilesma becomes a head coach in Seattle. He's worked with her for 2 years, seen what she can do. And so, really a cool story, whether it was a man or woman. And it just so happens she's also, breaking barriers with that. So, I think that's obviously worthy of a stick tap, and it's a pretty, it's certainly a well-earned opportunity, and the game's changing, man. I mean, we've got more women in front offices. Even since this podcast started, there's a number of women that are assistant general managers now around the league. And I think we'll see more in the coaching ranks too, coming behind Jessica.
Hell yes. I love that stick tap for Jessica. Congratulations to her. Mine will be a little bit more fun. Well, Jessica's story is amazing. This is going to be a little bit more silly. The schedule releases that were coming out this week from some of the different NHL teams, I really enjoyed some of the videos. I think the Calgary Flames had a really good one. The Minnesota Wild had a really good one. I love the New Jersey Devils one with Dougie Hamilton and Curtis Lazar announcing which teams they'd be playing throughout the season. And Dougie Hamilton is this geography teacher. I love the fact that, we're in a world now where more and more personalities is starting to become more encouraged from these teams. And for the Devils to step up and do a really cool video that a lot of people enjoyed on social media, I thought that was awesome. The Pittsburgh Penguins also had a really fun one too with friend of the show, Jeff Carter, where they actually didn't reveal a schedule. They just said same old schedule, but that was just a really fun one as well. But shout out to all the different social media teams who helped put together some really great schedule release videos throughout this past week, including the New Jersey Devils, who I think had the best of all of them.
Yeah, Dougie's like, Arizona, oops, Utah. I don't know anything about Utah. It was good. I really liked that too. It was good.
Awesome. Does this mean we only have one more episode before we go on summer break?
Small hiatus, yeah. We'll be back in August.
Oh, yeah. It's summer break still.
Yes, it's a summer break. So one more show early next week, and then I'm going to do some traveling. I'm not sure what your plans are, but we'll reconvene at a point when the weather's still nice. We're not leaving you too long, friends of the show. 100%ers. We're not totally peacing out.
Stampede is on. I'm gonna do some traveling too. Oh yeah, I'll get my summer downtime in for sure.
I'm also dropping in on the STP on Monday.
Ooh,
in studio.
That's a must-watch episode.
In studio. So I'm not sure if I'm allowed to release that, but it's my life, it's my commitment, and this is my show. So.
That's why you should listen to the Chris Johnston Show, everybody. We'll be back on Monday with our final episode before we go on hiatus. We'll figure out what we'll talk about on that episode. Peace, guys.
The Chris Johnston Show. Inside the game, twice a week. Follow Chris on Twitter @ReporterChris. And follow Julian McKenzie @JK McKenzie.
The Chris Johnston Show.